Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josey. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josey. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josey, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is the importance of using correct comparables when pricing your completed flip. When flipping a house, one of the most crucial steps is pricing the property accurately once the renovations are complete. Correctly assessing the value of your flip can mean the difference between a quick, profitable sale and a prolonged, costly one. Here are 5 reasons why using the right comps is essential. Number 1, accurate market valuation. Using accurate comps ensures that your property's price aligns with current market trends. Comps are similar properties in the same area that have recently sold. These provide a realistic benchmark, preventing overpricing or underpricing, which can either drive buyers away or leave money on the table. Number 2, attracting the right buyers. Pricing your flip based on correct comps attracts buyers who are looking for properties within a specific price range. This strategic pricing can increase interest and offers, leading to a faster sale. Number 3, avoiding appraisal issues. Buyers' lenders will require an appraisal. If your property is priced higher than what the comps justify, the appraisal may come in lower than the sale price, potentially jeopardizing the deal. Correct comps help you set a price that appraisers can support. Number 4, minimizing market time. Homes priced using accurate comps tend to sell faster. Properties that sit on the market too long often see reduced interest and may ultimately require price reductions, cutting into your profits. Number 5, setting realistic expectations. By understanding the pricing landscape through comps, you can set realistic expectations for the selling price and time frame. This helps in planning your next investment without financial surprises. So, using the correct comparables when pricing your flip is vital for ensuring a successful sale. It helps you align with the market, attract buyers, avoid appraisal issues, and minimize the time your property spends on the market. Proper pricing based on accurate comps can significantly impact your overall profitability and house flipping business. Now on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us Steve Keighery, an Australian entrepreneur and property investor with an impressive track record. He launched his Australian home improvement marketplace business, which IPO'd with a market capitalization of $315 million. After relocating to New Orleans, Steve successfully closed over 175 wholesale transactions. He's also a savvy investor using the BRRRR strategy to build a portfolio of 27 properties totaling 36 doors. Steve's unique journey and insights into real estate are sure to inspire and educate. So welcome to the show, Steve Keighery. How are you, sir?
I'm really good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I guess I can officially be a badass now.
You are a
Let's go.
badass.
Yes.
I love it. And you have a really interesting story. I've never interviewed anyone from Australia. So how is real estate in Australia different from here in the United States?
It's pretty different. It's much better here in the United States for a few reasons. I mean, firstly, property's really expensive in Australia. So I'm from Sydney, Australia. It's actually the second least affordable city in the world
Wow.
which is incomes to value. Not the most expensive dollar wise, but income to value. It's just really expensive. Part of the reason is that we have this tax quirk where they call it negative gearing, but basically if you lose money on a rental property, they'll let you offset that money against your W-2 income. So what that means is that like people that earn high incomes, we have high income taxes like 50%. So right? Their accountants like, you're paying too much tax, buy a rental property, claim the loss, and you get a refund, right? So they lose $1 and they get 50 cents back. I mean, the math ain't mathing to me, but I don't know. Australians don't math, I guess. But that's a big reason why people will invest in real estate. They'll lose money. They don't care that doesn't get money because they're saving taxes. And it does get a lot of capital appreciation. So I mean, they're banking on that appreciation as opposed to cash flow. But it makes it a really like not a great investment from my perspective. So the other thing that's very different, which I tell Americans this, I think you guys don't appreciate something that's so amazing, and that's a 30-year fixed mortgage.
Ooh, you don't have
30-year fixed mortgage
talk to me.
is one of the greatest gifts that America has given its citizens. I don't know if you know this, but it doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. Nowhere else in the world does 30-year fixed mortgages. It's to be honest, it's crazy at a low price. It's crazy to do a 30-year fixed mortgage. I know everyone was getting like 2, 3, 4% like back in the 2020s. And a financial institution to lend money long term for 30 years at 3%, when you know inflation is at least 2%, like it's a dumb idea. But America has Fannie and Freddie who buy the loans. It's almost, you can consider it subsidized. So we do not have that in Australia. They're all variable interest rates. You might get it fixed for like 3 years, but then when the Fed, I mean, it's the RBA for us, but when the Fed essentially increases interest rates, the next day you get a letter, your loan goes up like constantly. So that sucks.
That sucks bad. Wow, I didn't
And
know that.
yeah, and so I mean, I tell people like the 30-year fixed debt is actually such a really good wealth building tool. If you can deploy it strategically on an asset that's where the tenant is paying that note and paying that mortgage down, and that's fixed, and you can sit on that long term, makes a very good investment.
Wow, that is so interesting, Steve. And I appreciate you explaining that. How did you get involved with real estate, though? Because it sounds a little tricky over there.
It is. I mean, probably I got introduced to real estate probably how a lot of people have. I'm guessing Robert Kiyosaki, but I did not read his book. I was lucky enough that my friend convinced me to go to him speaking in the year 2000 in Sydney, Australia. He was speaking. He was reasonably new on the block, and he convinced me to go. And I listened to Robert, and he just blew my mind. Just changed my complete trajectory in life about the quadrant of like employee, self-employed, business, investment. So and that side, and then on building assets. So Robert talked about building businesses and being an investor, like buying assets. So that's what really got me into it. I did start with business first, and then I did start to invest in property. I did buy a few in Australia. It was difficult. I didn't buy where I lived because I said it was so expensive. So I rented where I lived, and I bought in other areas where I pretty much broke even. Like so for
Wow.
Australia, breaking even was good. And then they did get capital growth. I have sold them recently and I did really well over the long term, but I basically broke even for like 6, 7 years while I held on to them.
My goodness, this is so different. I really appreciate you sharing that. And I want to get into this whole business thing of selling businesses and the capitalization of $315 million. So in the intro, I said you IPO'd. So what does that mean? Explain what IPO means to the listeners.
So I mean, IPO stands for initial public offering, and essentially what that means is listing a business on the stock exchange, right? So obviously, you probably know you can all buy and sell businesses on the stock exchange, but like they need to get on the stock exchange, right? And obviously, a small new business doesn't start on the stock exchange. Normally, they're going to build it, and the IPO is a way that you get on the stock exchange. You need to sell in, like people need to buy it. The initial public offering is like that first offering where people buy in and then it lists and hopefully the share price goes up but then you can actually sell it. So as a one of the business owners, I mean, we have partners and those investors. So unfortunately that whole 315 million didn't go to me. Is certainly a much smaller portion than that, but it was still great. But what it meant was I had an ownership of the business, and when it listed on a stock exchange, I could now sell a share of that. as opposed to before you list, you pretty much have to sell your whole business, or you might be on an investor. But once it's listed, yeah, I can sell just a couple of shares, or I could sell 10%. So that's a real advantage, and it's a very liquid market. Another thing that Robert Kiyosaki did teach me, like, was that it is great to sell shares, not necessarily to buy them. So if you can sell them without buying them, so these shares, I sold them. They were worth a significant amount of money, and I was able to sell them. I still have a bunch, and I've sold a bunch, and I sold them, but I never bought them. I created them.
Wow, I love this. So, what lessons did you learn from this process of when your company went public, and how could that benefit, say, our listeners or other entrepreneurs that are real estate investors?
Well, I mean, I think it can benefit them. I think it's just encouragement. It's something you can do. You don't have to IPO your company. It's probably like a really good outcome, but you can also sell a company. There's like you sell it privately to another individual. You don't have to IPO a company, but I think what I would like to impart on listeners is that, like, start one. You have to start one to be able to have yourself in a position where you have a business that you can sell, be it on stock exchange or to an individual. So, and that is that just entrepreneurship. There's more risk in starting a business than having a job, because employees get paid first, bills get paid first. As a business owner, you get paid last. And if you do it right, hopefully that last payment is really big. But it's not always that. And I had many lean years of building that business and growing it. So, but I guess just what I'd like to impart is that, like, having a business is very profitable and is a way to build capital fast. It's a good option. Real estate's probably safer and slower. Like, real estate doesn't have that same upside. Like, it's hard to create an asset that then becomes a $15 million asset unless you're doing really big commercial projects. So it's harder to get that, but it's much easier. My business could have gone to zero really easily through just also not always your own fault, through competitive forces, disruption, etc. So, business is a great way to build a lot of wealth, but there is more risk, and so it's something to consider.
Well, let's get into that, because I know you believe in the power of building businesses and investing over being an employee, which you said right before we hit record that you've never been an employee. What? So, can you discuss the advantages and the potential risks of building businesses and investing versus being an employee?
Definitely. And
Loaded question, huh?
I've never had a full-time job. So when I left university, I went straight into business, but I did have casual jobs throughout school and university. So I have worked, but I did work to learn. I did a lot of sales jobs because Robert Kiyosaki again said, like, you work to learn, and that sales is a good skill. So I have done that. But so the advantages of a business is there's a lot more upside. There's you are building your own asset that as you create, like, a brand and something that, like, you can leave it and it's still worth money. You can go
Right.
away and your employees grow it. You can sell it and it's not you. I still have shares in my business. I haven't been involved in it in like 6 years now, but I still have shares and it still runs. I still get here, so it's still got 300 employees. It's an entity. But the downside is it's not a steady income. You there's a lot of risk. You may not get paid. So you need to be able to stomach that. It's harder to get loans. So speaking to your people who have got a job trying to get investment properties, having a job can be an easier way to get loans and get on the property ladder. It is actually funny because I had a lot of trouble getting loans on properties in Australia. And it was interesting because, like, my employees were getting loans. My wife, she barely worked and she got, like, the credit they were extending her was crazy. Like, they would give me nothing and I'll give her credit. And my employees, who, like, they wouldn't give me a loan because I was a director of the company. And I'm like, dude, if the company goes bad, my employees are getting fired before me. Like, but that was a real downside. So it was harder to get loans. I really unlocked loans in Australia when I no longer was a director, because we had different investors come on board. So, like, we had certain seats. You have to give up seats and let some other power come in. And when I did that, that's when I was like, cool, because then I go to the bank and I'll just go, hey, I'm an employee. Like I'm a high paid employee, and then I unlock the loan. So you need to consider that. If you've got a job and you're building properties, it's a pretty sure path to wealth, but it's slow. But it's a slow and steady, safe climb. But if you are more of risk, if you're less risk averse and you're happy to like engage in something, it's worth it. When I started, I was young. I didn't have kids. I didn't have a lot of commitment. So I didn't have a lot to lose. So if you're already well established with a family that's relying on an income, you got to be more careful.
Absolutely. And is kind of leading into the next question here. But another thing is when you're an employee here in the US, I'm not sure what your health insurance is like over in Australia, but paying health insurance when you're a business owner can be super expensive. So going back to a lot of my listeners, by the way, are still in the rat race. They are wanting to break free and get into real estate full time. So what advice do you have? And I love that you brought up the loans because that was a hard lesson to learn when we started. And my husband ended up having to get a job so that we could get approved for some loans. So thank you for bringing that up. But what advice would you give to someone who is considering leaving their job to pursue real estate investing full time?
I would probably say wait, which is funny, right? Like do what I say, not what I do. But I would caution, like unless you're really into it, I would caution to wait. And it depends what your strategy is. If you're trying to build rental properties, I think are like the best long-term wealth building assets. But I think there is a misconception. You don't necessarily you don't buy a couple and live off the rent, right? Like it takes a bit of time
Right.
for those rentals to really start paying you. So if you quit with a couple rentals and go, my rentals are going to pay my bills, it's tough. It's tough to make that work, and you're in danger of burning out, not working, and then going, oh, this doesn't work. So having that income allows you to not need the rentals to pay you. So therefore, the money you're making, you can keep in that rental business. You can buy more rentals. You become safer, and you grow, and eventually you'll be able to get out of there. If you're more active, flipping, wholesale, I wholesale too. So like I do earn income wholesale. So if you're doing like flipping and wholesaling, you are generating faster returns. Like you can quit and do that. If you feel comfortable that you can do some flips and make income from that to replace your salary, then you can go for it and then build the rentals. But I would just say that rentals just take longer. You can't just buy a couple rentals and quit.
Well said. And we are going to get more into rentals. But before, I want to know, how did you choose New Orleans or New Orleans or New Orleans? We were talking about the different ways to say it. So how did you and your family choose New Orleans coming from Australia?
So I mean, we didn't intend to move here. So we definitely chose New Orleans to come visit for a while. So
It's the beignets. It's the
it's the
beignets.
beignets, it's the Mardi Gras, it's very relaxed, it's a very fun place. So we do love America. We've been to 28 different states. We've seen a fair chunk of America. And when I'd left operational capacity at my business in Australia, I sold some shares, so I had some money. And my goal was to do a little mini retirement. I wanted to take a year off and just do nothing. That was like, and it is Robert Kiyosaki thing, by the way. He has a book, Retire Young, Retire Rich, which he talks about that. Take a year off, don't think about your next move. So we decided to come to New Orleans. We chose it because it is our favorite city. We wanted to come and just spend 6 months here, enjoying ourselves. We put our daughter she had a sister school in New Orleans to a school in Sydney. So we enrolled her for 6 months, and we did not intend to move here, like zero intent of moving here. But we fell in love with the city. About 2 months in, my wife's like, "We're not going, right, Steve? Like, can we stay here?" And then I'm like, I liked it too, and I wanted to let me look at the opportunities I have. I did want to do more property, so I had an inkling to do that. And when I looked at the market, I just realized how much better America was to Australia, like we discussed at the beginning. And I'm like, yeah, we can do this. I can set up a business here. So that's what we did. We're able to live in America because we have a business investment visa, which is we're employing Americans, we're stimulating the economy here. So that got us access. And yeah, so we chose New Orleans for a vacation, and it chose us to live here basically.
Well, New Orleans has a very special place in my heart because I got my now husband, boyfriend at the time, drunk on hand grenades, which is a very popular drink. It's a tall drink in a green neon cup thing or whatever, and then it has a little floating grenade in it. But we had a couple of those, and by the end of the night, I'm like, we should spend the rest of our lives together. Size 8. So that's literally, we were married 4 months after that. So New Orleans has a very special place in my heart, so I'm glad it chose you as well. So you mentioned at one point how wholesaling provided you with access to some of your best rental deals. So, and by the way, 175 wholesale deals is quite an accomplishment. So how did the wholesaling help feed your rental portfolio?
I mean, immensely. So I should say my background is like sales. I'm good at sales and marketing. That was sort of my business. I ran sales and marketing. So I wanted to do property, and I actually bought my first deal for wholesaler, and I'm like, what's a wholesaler? What do they do? And I went to learn. I'm like, man, that's sales and marketing. That's my skill. So when I learned what wholesaling was, I lent into them, and that's my in, because I didn't really know the market here very well. I'd done some property in Australia, but I didn't know this market. So I went deep into the market on wholesaling. I learned to market, find deals. I'm looking for distressed sellers, people with inherited properties, damaged properties, foreclosures. So I started to get all these people that had problems, and I was networking really well with like all the local buyers here and learning what they wanted. So I started wholesaling to them, and then they taught me what a good deal was. Like I learned how to comp, like you said, like your tip, right? Like I learned how to do accurate ARVs. You know, I didn't know it first, but I learned them. I learned the different strategies the buyers were using. So the buyers are the smart people in our market, like, and they taught me through me selling to them. And then when I got smart and I was generating all these leads, like I was able to acquire rental properties. I became confident that I knew the value. I knew I could handle it. And I'm not much of a renovator. Like I'm not like I love the asset of property. Like I love properties, but it's more the debt and all the stuff around it, not so much the like HGTV. I'm not a flipper. I'm not a good flipper. So I would keep the easy deals. Not the good deals, because like if I send a deal out to my buyers, it's always a good deal. I'm betting like it's a good deal, but you normally have to earn your keep, right? You gotta do a renovation to add that value. Whereas when I saw the ones that like didn't need much, like a clean out, paint, carpet, like, and it still was at a wholesale price, I'm like, that one I'm gonna BRRRR,
Boom.
and I would buy them as a BRRRR strategy.
Love it. And what year was this when you moved to New Orleans, by the way? I'm just curious.
So I came on vacation in 2018, sort of made it official in 2019. So I started wholesale in 2019. I think I only did one deal like right at the end of 2019. And then 2020, I started wholesaling. I probably did more like 20 transactions. And at the end of that year, I bought my first two. And then in 21, I bought like 14 BRRRRs. So sort of like I ramped up, and then 2022, no, 21, sorry, 21, I went hard in BRRRRs. Yeah.
So a couple questions are popping in my brain here because right before we signed on there, I got a Bigger Pockets article emailed to me, and it was talking about how wholesaling is getting outlawed in a lot of, or there's just going to be a lot more regulation, not necessarily outlawed. You have to either have your real estate license, all these different regulations behind it. So what's going on in New Orleans with wholesaling legislation?
They were proposing some of those legislations. I have sort of watched, I don't fixate too closely, but I've watched some of those legislations in different areas. They were contemplating some stuff here in Louisiana. I think like 2 sessions ago, there were some people in the middle to like, were trying to put forward, but the bill got squashed. We did find out later that apparently one of the senators or congressmen or whatever it is wholesale. So that might be helpful.
Wow.
It did get squashed, but I mean, I am watching nationally, things are happening, so it could definitely come back. Some of these other places that do it provide a platform that like might help them. They didn't really know how to word it or do it, so it could happen. It won't happen for a while here. Personally, I'm not too fast. If it comes, I'll figure it out. I do buy houses, so like I am a cash buyer, so I can buy them. I can be aggressive in my marketing because I'm an actual buyer. Even though I wholesale a bunch, I do buy, and I bought properties that I didn't want just to look after my sellers because I care about my brand. So if the laws change, I'm sure I can navigate it. I can buy
Right.
them. I can double close them. I'll be able to figure it out. It probably will be harder for the newer people maybe to figure it out though.
For the newer people, there are so many gurus, I hate that term,
Yeah.
who say, all you got to do is wholesale. You just get a property under contract and then wholesale it to someone and you make $20,000. Can you like bust that myth? Because it takes a lot of money to actually wholesale because you're marketing expert as it is, and it costs money to get those leads, to market those leads. And so
Yeah.
But bust that myth a little bit for me
Yeah. Yeah.
because
I mean,
I can't stand that. Yeah.
yeah, no, the gurus are full of BS. Like, like, they're technically you can, and there is like, yes, you can be lucky, and you can do that 20,000 deal, like that is possible, but it's a very, very small percentage, and you can't really build a business without spending money on marketing, and you need to spend money or effort, and really a bit of both. And not only does it cost money, like you don't need to buy the house. So it is true, you don't need the money to buy the house because if you've got buyers, they will pay the money.
Right.
So, but you do need money to generate those leads. You do need to market and follow up. And it doesn't always happen straight away. It actually took me 6 months to do my first deal.
Wow.
And I did my first, second, third deal the same week. Right.
Wow.
So, and it wasn't that I finally figured out what I was doing. It was the effort I put in started to come back. And from then I was actually really consistent. Like I started to really flow because I put a lot of effort in that 6 months. And I think that's an important point because it can take time. You can do it really fast, but it doesn't have to take 6 months. You can get a deal really fast. It's definitely possible, but may not be the case. But you spend money on marketing, you don't get paid straight away because you're going to get the contract. You got to sell the deal. You might need to negotiate with the seller for a while. You might need to back and forth follow up. So it takes, they call it the cash conversion cycle, right? It's like I spent this money on marketing, but I didn't get paid from that marketing until like a couple months afterwards.
Right.
So you can't, it's not like I spend this money and I get it back straight away. I spend it and I get it here. If you do that consistently, like we do it now, we do deals all the time, very regularly, but like every month I'm doing deals, not so much on the money I spent this month, but it's all the past month's work I've done that I'm getting paid for. So it does take work. It is, I'll say it this way. Wholesaling is easy, right? It's simple, but it's easy in the same way that losing weight and being in great shape is simple and easy, right? It's like to be really, all you need to do is eat less is to burn more calories than you eat and go to the gym every day. Simple. If everyone does that, you're gonna have beautiful, skinny bodies and like whatever that is, right? It's easy.
So,
But
so
but
well
it's hard to
said.
do. It's hard to do. And
Exactly.
that is wholesale. Like, yes, it's simple, it's easy, but you need that discipline, that action, that follow through to make it work.
Well, I think I'm similar to you in that, well, more so, we use wholesaling as kind of an exit strategy. So you were saying you are a cash buyer and you take the ones that don't need that much work, maybe a lipstick job, but you still have your end buyers that you will wholesale a deal to. And I'm somewhat in the same way. And I have students across the country and I teach them just use it as an exit strategy. If you get a deal that comes across your desk that has a lot of meat on the bone, that you can wholesale it to another investor and make a quick 20, 30,000, or you can hold on to it, flip it yourself, and then in 12 months, once you're finished with the rehab and everything, and make 90,000, I'm going to make that 20 or 30 quick thousand first. And like in and out, like you said, it's easy. But I think that's important that you're getting these leads coming in and you're still looking at them like, oh, I can actually BRRRR this one. So go ahead.
I just think I just want to double down on that point. It's really important because I think everyone should wholesale because even if you're a buyer and you just flip, if you're marketing to sellers, if you don't wholesale, like it's hard to spend money on marketing because you're getting these leads that like is worth money, but you're throwing them in the bin and it's hard to get the perfect avatar deal for you. So you sort of need to wholesale so you can afford to keep marketing and going. So that's really important. Or if you don't want to do that, if you're allergic to that, I have some of our buyers who they'll joint venture with me, right? So they'll get a deal and they don't really want to sell it for whatever reason. They're like, hey, Steve, what do you think of this? Could you wholesale it? I'm like, yeah, we'll partner. So I'll find the buyer. You've got the seller. We'll split the assignment fee. So if you don't want to do it yourself, find a local wholesaler who can move the deals in your market and at least joint venture with them and get paid for those leads.
And listeners, he said something very important here that I always say ABM, always be marketing. And my sweet spot when we were flipping a lot, where we've kind of pulled back from flipping these days, but our sweet spot was 5 flips at a time. That's about all I could handle. But I'm still marketing because as soon as you stop marketing, like you said, it took you 6 months and then you hit 3 all at once. So when I had 5 flips going on and then I had a person wanting me to buy their property because they got one of my postcards or whatever, I would still go walk the property, still give them an offer, but I would most likely wholesale that one. So I love that you said that. So listeners, that was a huge point. Always be marketing because you never want that to be slowing down. Let's get into the BRRRR strategy here. So really quick, for anyone who is living under a rock who's never heard of the BRRRR strategy, which is BRRRR, what does that mean?
So we're buying the property, we're renovating the property, we're renting it out, then we're refinancing our equity out of that property, and then the last R is to repeat. You do it again. So you're basically recycling your money by investing and refinancing.
So, and thank you. Excellent definition there. So can you walk us through a typical BRRRR strategy and how, and I love this term, but how it can lead to infinite cash on cash return?
That's why I love the BRRRR, infinite cash and cash return. So I mean, if a BRRRR is similar to a flip, except you don't sell it at the end and instead you refinance and leave equity in there. So a typical deal is coming to me. I'm underwriting like I would a flip or anything else. I'm trying to buy it at 70% of ARV minus repairs, maybe 65% in this market, similar to what a flipper would do. So I will buy it, and once I fix it up, I'm generally all in at about 70% of the after repair value. And that's when a flipper might sell it, right? And they're going to try to take that 30% equity minus the fees of selling, and they're going to make their profit. So instead, as a BRRRR person, I go to the bank and I refinance the property because it's stable. It's got a renter in there, so it's got an income stream. So I can go get a DCSR loan, a debt service coverage ratio loan, and they're going to say, "Great, I'll lend you 75% of the value of the property as a cash out refinance." So I'm all in at 70%. They're refinancing 5%. There's probably some fees in there, so I might not get all that money. But an ideal BRRRR for me is I can just get all my money out. I don't need to pull money out. But if I can get all my money back, I paid cash, I bought the property, I fixed the property, but now when I refinance it, I get all that money back in my pocket, and now I'm getting a return on the rent. And because there's zero cash, I got no money in the deal anymore. It's an infinite cash on cash return because there's no cash in the property. So even if, and when I do a BRRRR, I'm trying to get an infinite cash on cash return. I don't mind so much about the amount. I'm not trying, it doesn't need to be a home run. I'm pretty happy making like $2,000 a year if I'm got an infinite cash and cash return. Caveat: when I calculate what I'm earning, I am taking out management fees, maintenance costs. Like it's not PITI minus rent because you need to factor in
possible vacancies is another expense. Yes,
exactly. But if I can take those fees and make a little bit of profit with no money in it, I'll do that all day. And because then I take the money and I just do it again. And now I'm stacking these assets. And those assets have that 25% equity. So if I ever wanted to, I can sell it. I can sell it in the future. After a year, it'll be long-term capital gains tax. So it's better than doing a flip straight away. But I believe to hold on to it long-term is great. With that 30-year fixed debt, it's like holding on to that long-term. It's really, really.
I was going to say, because in Australia, it's constantly going up with inflation. But here, when you have a rental, it's going to be the same mortgage payment if you get a 30-year fixed mortgage rate, but your rents always go up in the United States. So I love the whole infinite cash on cash return, and it's a long hold in. But if you do run into tough times, so we had a tough year 2 years ago and last year too, if I got to go ahead and announce that, but yeah, it's been rough. But 2 years ago, we had a rental that had a lot of equity in it, and we bought it really cheap, I think $95,000, and we ended up selling it for $265,000 because we needed some cash to keep other deals going, other renovations and things like that. So I love everything that you said there. So my last question for the first part of this podcast is, how has acquiring rental properties contributed to your long-term wealth building strategy?
So very much so. It's really been a net worth play in these initial years, right? Because I'm buying these properties, like I said, I'm doing the refinance, and I've got that equity. And because I get my money back, I recycle my money, I buy it again. So I've been able to stack a bunch of properties. I've got 27 properties now. But I use the same money to buy them all, and they all have that 25% equity. So the equity's grown. And now I borrow them at 75% LTV, but they're now, most of them are like 70% because the loans have been amortizing because the tenant is paying the note. And yes, I'm getting a return, but in addition to the return I'm getting, which isn't a lot, like I said, but it's still a return, but they're also paying down the principal of the loan. So now that what I'm owing is less. So for me, it is a long-term strategy because what you owe becomes less and less with every payment of the mortgage. But then with inflation, like the rent starts to go up, the value starts to go up, but what you owe starts to go down. And that's why if you hold it long term, it's like the crocodile jaws, right? They start to split. And that's really where you build net worth. So for me, these properties have been a net worth play. The cash I generate, I basically keep in the properties just to like maintain them and just be safe. So it's really affected my net worth significantly.
I love how the guy from Australia was able to fit crocodile in there.
Yes.
Love it. So you heard me at the beginning give a badassery bestowment. We were talking about using comps. Do you have a bit of advice you can share with the listeners?
I definitely do. I actually thought I was going to say, but I actually forget what I actually forget what I was going to say. But I'll give the advice to wholesalers. If you're wholesaling and you're doing these good comps, it's very important to have good comps. When you're sending deals out to buyers, sorry, use a lower version of the comp. Right? If you're like, hey, the comp, it might sell for 250,000, or it could be 250, it could be 270. Let's just using some random numbers. Send it out at 250. Right? Because if your buyers think you under comp, they trust you, they look at your deals, they buy your deals. You might be able to 270, you might be able to justify it, but if you have to justify it and like try to convince people, use that lower one. Your buyers will love you, they'll fight over your deals, they'll look at your emails. Yeah.
Thank you for that nugget. I think that is fabulous. So we're going to go into the second part of the podcast here, which is what makes Steve Keighery a badass. And I use the acronym badass, and the first letter is B. I hope you use the same author you've been mentioning a few times here, but what is a book that's made a huge difference in your life?
It is obviously a Robert Kiyosaki book, and I'm sure you get that answer a lot, but I'm not going to say Rich Dad Poor Dad, all right?
Okay.
I'm gonna say Retire Young, Retire Rich, which was the one about taking a year off when you exit a business, which is why I came to New Orleans. But I also say it in the symbol of, if you're a Robert Kiyosaki fan, I assume most of your people are, just because everyone is. Everyone's read Rich Dad Poor Dad and Cash Flow Quadrant. If you haven't, go read them. But what I want to say to all you people who have read Rich Dad and Cash Flow Quadrant is keep reading, because the other books are just as good. They go deeper on different thoughts. The whole infinite cash and cash return is a Robert Kiyosaki thing. I got that from Robert. The whole retire, take a year off, got that from Robert. And these are all the later books. So keep going.
I just had David Richter, who wrote Profit First for Real Estate Investing. I just had him. I run a mastermind called Rain, and he spoke at one of our Ignites, and he was talking about the cash flow game. Have you played Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game?
So what's really funny is I'm such a big fan. I hadn't played it for years. I never played it. I listened to every tape. I listened to everything of his, and I hadn't played it. And I was at the Ohio Real Estate Investors Annual Conference, and they had a tournament. And I'm like, I'm playing this, and I've never played it before, but like I should be good. I won the tournament, and
Nice.
I couldn't tell you, I was just so proud because like I didn't know if I would be good. But I'm like, I should be good. I know I know how he thinks, and I won the tournament. So there you go. It was my first time playing.
Good for you. And I love playing with other real estate investors because so there's 5 of us, and everyone plays how they run their business. And it is hilarious. My husband is a big saver. So Mr. Hand Grenade himself, he wants to pay off debt immediately. And so he was the last one to get out of the rat race.
Yeah.
I was the winner too, Steve, just so you know.
Yes.
I buy him up and we'll eat potato chips if I have to because I'm in it for the long haul. So listeners, you got to check out this game. It's like $80. I think you can get it on Amazon, and it is so worth it. It's called Rat Race or Cash Flow. Is it Rat Race or Cash Flow?
Cash flow. Cash flow. Yeah. You escaped the rat race, the cash flow. Yes.
Got it. And I do have to check out Retire Young, Retire Rich, because I stopped after the cash flow quadrant one. So
yes. Most people do.
Yes. So I will have to keep reading. All right. The first A in badass is for advice. What's the best? You've given us great advice, but what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The best piece of advice I received was under promise, over deliver.
I love it. And just like how you do your wholesaling. And
Yeah, it actually mirrors exactly, because that's how we do everything really. And I learned that in business, and just promise less, then give more, and delight your customers. They want to come back. They want to do business with you. It's a very, very good way to live.
thank you for saying that. All right. The D in badass is for drive. What drives you to be successful?
I'm really just driven by independence and being able to. So I sort of, I'm self-driven, like it's about me, but like I I just had this deep-seated thought that I can sort of do whatever I want. I don't need to conform. I don't need to have a job. I don't need to like I just got this independent drive, but I want to prove that it's possible. I'm just like, so I don't know what it is that drives me. I'm just driven by that. I just want to be independent, not be told what to do, not have to conform to what other people say, basically.
A rebel. I love it. I thought your biggest drive was post-it notes by looking at behind you on the wall. All right. The second A in badass is for aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal you are currently working on?
Yeah, so a goal is to do 85 wholesale deals this year. That we did 47 last year. Our goal was 50, and we were hustling, and we just didn't quite make it. We closed two like literally the first day of this year because it was, but didn't make it. But 85, so we want to step it up and keep doing more deals in our local Greater New Orleans area.
Very good. All right. The first S in badass is for systems. What systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
Probably the simplest and most practical one everyone can do is morning routine. So
Huge.
yeah, like I've read the book Miracle Morning, and that helped a lot. And just every morning I do meditation. I'll visualize, and just having a routine that you do every day is a hack. I believe in systems. I have lots of different systems and processes, but like I think the simplest one, morning routine, read, meditate, just get yourself in the right state of mind and do it every day.
I spent 4 hours, what's today? Thursday on what yesterday. I spent 4 hours with Hal Elrod, who wrote Miracle Morning.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he has an app, and it's like $99 for the year, but you get to go to it's the Miracle Morning year, or Miracle Year was what we did yesterday, and set our goals and do all that. And so I absolutely love it. And I had been doing some of the savers. That's what they call it. It's silent affirmation, all that fun stuff, visualization, exercise. I've been doing it, but I kind of got away from it. So getting back into it, I'm just more energized, and absolutely it is a huge system. And I love that you said it, because most people are like spreadsheets and Google Calendar, and I use this, and but morning routine, I agree 1,000%. I am just useless if I don't go through that morning routine. So, Steve, I could talk to you for hours, but the final S in badass is success. What does success mean to you?
Success to me is just having a life of abundance and freedom. It's not materialistic, so that is my goal. Like, but when I say abundance, it's just being able to spend time with my family, not having to do things. Like, I want to be able to go out and buy what I want without thinking, but I don't care about Gucci, Chanel, anything materialistic. Just being able to do what I want when I want. Like, that's success. Yeah.
I love it. So if the listeners are wanting to reach out to you to connect with you, what's the best way for them to find you?
Probably LinkedIn's probably good. They can find me on LinkedIn. I can connect there. My Facebook's generally my friends and family, but like if you want to talk real estate, I do run a meetup. It is local to New Orleans. It's the West Bank Real Estate Investors. But like that's a place where I'm on Facebook, like talking real estate and stuff. So if you want to do that, probably West Bank Real Estate Investors is a good group to chat and meet me and many people like me, or LinkedIn, or my website, homebuyerlouisiana.com.
homebuyerlouisiana.com. Well, Steve, this has been such a pleasure. Again, I love that you got the word crocodile, my guy from Australia, in there on the conversation. So this has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you. I really enjoyed the conversation. I really appreciate you having me on board.
Absolutely. And that is all. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery, and don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josey by visiting therealjenjosey.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.